This episode may contain adult themes and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Sorry.
What's the trick in making my love stick? What's the trick?
Hello, and welcome to the Film Critic and the Common Man podcast. While other film podcasts might be just content with FOP, we're Dapper Dan men. Every episode, we discuss a film from the perspective of a film critic and from the perspective of a common man. We may not agree, but it certainly won't be boring. I am your co-host, Ben Miller. I write about films for my own site, Ice Cream for Freaks, and I'm a member of the North Texas Film Critics Association, as well as the International Film Society Critics. You can hear me guest on other pods as the David Thewlis of podcasting. I'm joined by my brother and the only man I would ever want to be on a chain gang with, Jake Miller. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good.
Good. You are, every time we watch one of these movies with relative desolation, you're always in a place you were just coming from a place with the exact same
Seems
settings.
like it. Actually, yeah.
So we're talking about the Great Depression era comedy take on Homer's Odyssey this week. The Coen Brothers, second Coen Brothers movie, our first repeat directors. We are talking about the 2000 film Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, directed by Joel Coen, written by Joel and Ethan Coen, as we said, based on the Odyssey by Homer, starring George Clooney, John Turturro, Tim Blake Nelson, John Goodman, and Holly Hunter, co-starring a ton of people, a lot of interesting faces: Chris Thomas King, Charles Durning, Daniel Von Bargen, Ray McKinnon, Michael Badalucco, and Stephen Root. It opened on May 13th, 2000 at the Cannes International Film Festival, went wide on December 22nd, 2000. Didn't actually break the bank box office wise. Only made 5.5 million domestic, 26.3 international, 71.8 million on a $26 million budget. But the soundtrack was number one on the Billboard 200, sold 8.175 million copies, the 10th most successful American film soundtrack in the history of film. Won the Grammy
for good reason.
For good reason, and we will get into it. Won the Grammy for Album of the Year. But the film itself, nominated for 2 Oscars: Best Adapted Screenplay, the Coen Brothers, the loss to the film Traffic, and Best Cinematography, which I'm going to get into big. I'm really going to film nerd out in this one, by the way, about the cinematography. Lost to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but Roger Deakins.
That's the dumbest thing I ever heard.
You don't like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, so cinematography on it is gorgeous. Even if I know even detractors of that movie who aren't the biggest fan, I still think it's pretty good to look at. Regardless, we will get into it.
Crouching outside and taking a shit. That's what I call it.
Rotten Tomatoes, there's a little bit of a separation. 79% from critics. A lot of critics found it reductive of what the Coens are used to. They had the kind of a certain standard that people were wanting to have. And they're like, it's lighter fare. And I'm like, well, it doesn't mean it's not awesome. So it's, I don't really like, I'm never a big fan of the kind of criticism where they're like, oh, it's not as serious as it usually is. Whatever. 79% from critics, 89% audience. So very high on the audience. Unsurprising. A lot of, living in the South, very few people don't love it that I know around, at least around here. It's very indicative of kind of the South and the Great Depression. The idea of just having the Odyssey set during the Great Depression is a pretty cool thing in general. So this was a request from our mom to include a musical. So you're welcome. So this is as close as you're going to get for the time being. Which we'll get into a little bit of the music stuff, a lot of the music stuff about it later. Jake, will you give us a plot summary of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah, so like you explained, this is basically a redo of Homer's Odyssey. It is set in the Great Depression in the Deep South. And George Clooney plays the main character, Ulysses Everett, McGill,
Mhm.
and actually um, Odysseus is the Greek name for Ulysses,
Makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
and so that's where that comes from.
And there's a lot of that
Anyways,
in this movie. Well,
oh
yeah,
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 a
yeah.
lot,
A
yeah.
lot. Yeah.
Um, and so basically, George Clooney plays a guy that he's kind of just a perpetual con man, really. Um, but very charming, very well spoken, a leader. Uh, and he's on a chain gang with two other guys, one being Delmar O'Donnell, played by
Tim Blake
Tim
Nelson.
Blake
Yes.
Nelson, and then Pete, played by John Turturro.
Yes.
And all I've got is Pete.
Yes. I don't have
but-
maybe Hog Wallop, because that's his cousin, but it's actually never
True.
said. It
Yep.
might not actually ever be. I don't think it ever said what Pete's last name is, but Pete Hog Wallop sounds right.
Yeah. Anyways, so George Clooney and Delmar, or I should say Everett, Delmar, and Pete
Yes.
are they're all convicts.
Mhm.
They're on a chain gang in the deep south during the Depression. Basically busting rocks on the side of the road. And Everett finds out that his wife has a new suitor potentially. So he needs to get back home and fix it. He's not going to stand for that.
Mhm.
So he dupes his chain gang partners into thinking that there's some big treasure that he's got buried back home. And if they'll just escape with them, they can have their cut.
Yeah.
When really his only motivation is to get back with his wife.
Yeah.
Well, there's, constant problems
something in the
along
way.
this
Yes.
journey. They do escape. They bust their chains loose. And then, for instance, John Goodman, who is the fill-in for Cyclops,
Very
the Cyclops monster.
very fun way to do that. Yes.
Yeah, he is a one-eyed dude. He's wearing an eye patch. Big nasty man. So it was, a good fill-in for the Cyclops. And they run into him. Good Lord, so much happens.
They're chased after by by a cop played by Daniel von Bargen. The epitome, I believe, Poseidon in the Odyssey, or Satan, or what's chase who's something along those lines. It's one of the gods trying to stop him.
Yeah,
So,
it's one of the evil gods going after him.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to chase down these three escaped convicts, so they're constantly on the run from that.
It's a lot of fun. It's,
very humorous.
Yeah.
There's a lot of exposure to Depression era Southern culture, I think. A lot of exposure specifically to African American culture at the time, I think.
Yep.
And kind of, this obviously post Civil War, but during segregation, during the Depression.
Yeah.
But anyways, they end up getting back to uh Everett's wife
Yes.
managed to beat the suitors
Yep.
through basically
a
a
task
feat of
that only they can do. That's right.
yeah.
That's just
Yeah. So I won't sing Man of Constant
I
Sorrow,
was gonna
but
say
I thought I fit the part.
I was gonna say the only problem is you can't pull on it and it goes anywhere. It's like
Right.
yours is actually still
no, that's attached.
Yeah. So
But yeah. Woos his wife back in. And then and you really don't find out about Peter
no, not
Delmar.
really. They're just kind of along for the ride. I mean, because I mean,
Well,
yeah.
and I mean, Everett, I mean, it's very self-serving.
Very.
You know, his motivation, he's willing to sacrifice these
Two
poor
idiots.
schmucks to, yeah. And he's a thinking man. I mean,
literally,
he's intelligent, well-educated. I mean, I think he went to prison for practicing law without a license.
Yeah. And I mean,
these other two Gomers are
his first line, not his first line, but one of his first lines in the movie is like, John Turturro said, "Who made you leader this outfit?" And it's like, well, I thought it'd be the one with the capacity for abstract thought. And it's kind of like,
yeah.
So I mean, it kind of summarizes the entire way of how he thinks that he knows these two are idiots. And he's like, I'm fine with it, whatever. Like,
yeah. So,
yeah. So,
you know, we don't know where those two guys go, but he ends up back with his wife and what they
seven
daughters.
The paterfamilias themselves. There's a lot to get into. There's a lot to get into with this. You know, the funny thing, I was reading about it, and whenever they were filmed, that neither the Coen brothers nor really anybody involved with this had read the Odyssey before. And they said whenever they were filming, Tim Blake Nelson was the only one of the entire cast who had read the Odyssey because he had a degree in classics from Brown University. So it is, and it's even more poetic that the guy who plays the most simple-minded, kind of like laid-back guy who doesn't have any, his
probably the only guy that actually knew
probably
what
the only
he's
guy
doing.
who actually knows what he's doing. So there's a lot to get into with this movie. So first, I want to start about the Clooney in general. Like, whenever I was watching this, you know, there was a lot of stop starts with Clooney. Clooney in general as an actor is a really interesting story just because of how, like, he was the story of a poor actor. He was the story for 15 years. There was always like if you look at his film, the movies he was in, he was, his first movie was a movie called Grizzly 2, The Revenge, The Return of the Killer Tomatoes in 1988. These are movies nobody has ever seen or ever heard of.
Return of the Killer Tomatoes.
Return of the Killer Tomatoes, not Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, Return. He was in a ton of TV. He was in so much TV. He was in a show called ER that was not the ER that you know.
Really?
It was a different one from 1984 that it ran for it ran for 8 episodes. He was on a ton of stuff. He was on The Facts of Life for 17 episodes, bunch of little TV. He was getting nowhere. There's a couple Golden Girls episodes he was in. There was an episode of Golden Girls. Like Roseanne, just TV after TV. Nothing worked for the longest time.
Just small part TV guy.
Yeah. For 15 years, he went nowhere. ER hits and he's a megastar immediately. But the difference is he's a megastar when he's like 40. So he's actually older. And then whenever he becomes a megastar, at least celebrity, they're like, okay, let's put him in movies and do all this kind of stuff. And that doesn't really work for a while. Like Dusk Till Dawn is the first movie he's ever done post being famous, which is a really bizarre movie if you ever see it, if you've seen Dusk Till Dawn.
I haven't.
It's really dark, and Quentin Tarantino is acting in it. There's a lot to it. Romantic comedies, obviously Batman and Robin. You see the Peacemaker with him and Nicole Kidman. I want to say he's an Interpol agent trying to chase down nuclear warheads or something like that. It's okay.
I don't think so.
So he really is kind of flat. He flounders for a long time, but he's still got ER. He's still wildly successful. Then he makes Out of Sight in 1998. It's one of my favorite movies ever. It's probably top 5. It's the epitome of, okay, here's George Clooney. He's suave, he's handsome, but there's a little bit of an edge to him, but everybody's likes him across the board. It's the first time it was ever a runaway success. And then he starts to do things like Three Kings and Perfect Storm, get a little bit of success. Yeah. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is the only time, the first time I ever was like, okay, he's trying something where he's like, he's still handsome, but he's kind of a shit. Like he's not just being handsome and suave and everybody loves him and everybody just kind of looks and it's like, everybody kind of recognizes him as the twisty guy that he is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's definitely a shifty con man.
Yeah.
In this. But
kind of a Clark Gable impression. I think, like that's what when I was thinking. That's
the mustache,
the little mustache, and the dark, and the kind of the never-ending streams of dialogue. I mean,
yeah, and just being able to out talk everyone, and they're eloquent, articulate speech throughout. And obviously the Southern charm. And
and I think he's from California. I could be wrong, but he pulls off a Southern accent pretty well. He seems like a Southern guy who seemed like he should have been a lawyer at one point. So I mean, there's a lot of Clooney that I liked about this movie. I think the star of this movie is Tim Blake Nelson. Anything Delmar,
my favorite character.
Anything Delmar says just makes me
Delmar's
laugh.
the best.
Delmar's the best. Tim
the best one.
So much like how George Clooney kind of floundered for a lot of his career. Tim Blake Nelson, especially, he's kind of an odd looking guy. He's not exactly. You're not.
I thought he was a Baldwin brother.
Really? That you're not. You know,
until like yesterday.
Whenever I look at it, like, you're not wrong.
I thought he was a lesser known Baldwin brother, like a fourth or fifth Baldwin brother. No, I really did. I'm not joking.
That's funny because like this is the first movie anybody had ever seen him in. Like he was in a little bit of stuff, like kind of like I said, like Clooney, a lot of TV, a lot of nothing of any sort of circumstance. And he's in this and he just blows it away. He's great. He's so good in this movie. Everything he says and the way he says it. I'm not sure if you've ever seen him in a different movie, but it's almost abrasive hearing him talk with his normal voice because Southern fits him so well. Like it still kind of has a version of it, but my favorite line of his is like, them sirens loved him up and turned him into a hornet toad. Like how
he's got. Well, I like whenever they're with Babyface Nelson, George Nelson, infamous bank robber, and they're with him just kind of as bystanders, like in this bank robbery, and this guy's.
I already know what you're gonna say.
He's cranking off 45 rounds out of a Thompson submachine gun with a drum mag on it. And Delmar says, he's a live wire though, ain't he?
He's alive. And I mean, and 2 minutes before 2 minutes before he's in the back and he's like, Fran, some of your folding money's come unstoled. Like just everything he says is just gold. And at the same time,
there's just a casual politeness to it.
And even all that, like even whenever it's not just always like, I think of the scene wherever he talks about they're sitting by the fire talking about what they were going to do with their money. And John Turturro talks about wanting to be a concierge at a restaurant. And he's sitting there just kind of quietly. It's like, I'm going to go to the guys at the savings and loan, slap that money and buy back the family farm. Just so wholesome. You're like, oh, that's nice. Like it's
you You ain't no kind of man
you ain't
if
no
you
kind
ain't
of
got
man if you ain't
land.
got land. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, he's so as dumb as he is, as obviously really stupid as he is, it's so innocently sweet.
Completely genuine. Though.
Yes, 100%. It's
Yeah,
like
that's yeah.
yeah, it's like the preacher said, my sins are washed away with an R in it. Well, that's the best part. It's like
Yeah. I think something that's great about his character is I think he just stands in such contrast to George Clooney's character.
yes,
Because George Clooney Everett is so intelligent and well spoken, but dishonest and conniving and backhanded.
Yeah.
This guy, what you see is what you get. And he's honest, good natured, and he calls it like he sees it. And,
one of my favorite.
I'm with you. I'm with you, fellas.
One of my favorite jokes in the movie is whenever Clooney and Tim Blake Nelson go eat with John Goodman, and he said, and so they're done. And it's like, well, no, what was I saying? He's like, it's like making money in line for the Lord. And then John Goodman just goes like, you don't say much for him, but when you do, you say to the point, and I appreciate it. Like, I salute you for it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, hey, that's it.
That's a good summary of that character.
Summary of what that character is. And I mean,
you don't say much, but when you do, yeah.
And even John Turturro talking about whenever they bust him out is like, I'm going to be 84 years old. He goes, I'm only be 82 with a huge smile on his face. Just happy as a clam. Just always on board with it.
You got to see things on the upside when you can, you know.
So
he's a half glass full kind of guy.
And of the three main characters, he's the only Grammy winner of them because since the soundtrack won the Grammy for best album, any contributor to the soundtrack gets a Grammy.
Oh, really?
Clooney, famous. My wife pointed out there's a Graham Norton video of him. He was actually going to sing "Man of Constant Sorrow," and he's like, "Well, how did it sound?" And everybody goes like, "Oh, great, George, it was great." He's like, "Well, let me hear it." And he colors back and he goes, "Wow, that's terrible." Like, so they dubbed him, and
John should probably get a singer in here.
Yeah, exactly. And they dubbed John Turturro. But at the end, whenever he's singing in the Jailhouse Now, that is actually Tim Blake Nelson actually singing in the Jailhouse Now. So he is a Grammy winner. I agree. Runaway success for all the stuff he does. The Coen Brothers, we went over them whenever we went when we did our No Country for Old Men podcast.
Oh, yeah.
But like I said, the critics kind of dismiss this for being a little reductive based on what they do, but they do comedies quite a bit. Raising Arizona obviously is a famous one. I love it. The Hudsucker Proxy, I think I told you about that one. That's about hula hoops, and Paul Newman's in it. It's cute. This one, Intolerable Cruelty, there was another one with George Clooney. Is probably as straightforward as a comedy they got, and that didn't really work. Burn After Reading's a lot of fun with big goofy Brad Pitt. Hail Caesar, about the movie industry, a lot of fun with that one too. And then your favorite, The Lady Killers. I know they tried comedy, but I don't know if any of it was funny. So I mean, they're really hit or miss when it comes to their comedies. I think this and Raising Arizona are the two that are the closest to being like this like the entire time it was hilarious. Like I don't know who anybody watches this and doesn't like, man, that was enjoyable. But yeah, it's one of those things.
Yeah, I think the Coen Brothers, my opinion of them, I'll give it to them. They try.
They sure try.
I mean, they're willing to go out on a limb.
Yeah. They're willing to take the chance.
I'll give them that. And sometimes that limb breaks off.
Yeah, sometimes it's the Lady Killers. And
you land on your ass. And then sometimes you get "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?"
Yeah. And then at the same time, even the dramatic side, like and even the movies they have that are pretty much severely dramatic. We talked about No Country. No Country has some hilarious parts. Like,
oh yeah,
and
definitely.
True Grit, another great example of stuff with a lot of funny thing. Fargo, exceptional example of almost more funny than dramatic. So I mean, it's always there. There's always something in it that's that's kind of hanging around there.
You can tell they're smart asses,
Oh
basically.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I want to get into the music. Before we do
Yes.
that, I kind of, whenever I think of musicals in general, movie musicals, I kind of put them into three different categories. Essentially, there's the first kind, which is a straight musical. Les Miserables would be a great example, where everything is spoken. There is music, there are specific songs, but even whenever they talk, there's music. I'm never a huge fan of those. Like,
I'm not a
it's like,
musical dude.
I'm not that. That's a lot. It's a lot to take personally. Like, I can get through it, but now the second type I'm much more receptive to, which is like a West Side Story, where they're talking, they're going to stuff, and then in the middle of his thing, they'll break out in a musical song, stop, and go back and then talk.
But see, it's even like the new Beauty and the Beast. Like
Yeah,
whenever she's all of a sudden like,
yeah.
I'm like,
So that's I understand the receptiveness, the apprehension from that. Now, my favorite version is this. This Cabaret is another good example where all the music happens organically, and all the, like, if there's performances, there's a performance because they're on stage, and if there is a song, it's because people are listening to a song, and
they're sitting around a campfire. And a dude's picking a guitar.
Yes, it all makes like, that's my favorite kind
organic,
of music. That's my favorite kind of musical. Cabaret.
That's why it works.
And you know, people kind of look at it. It's not just this. Like I said, Cabaret is a very like stagey, all that kind of stuff, but it's in a nightclub, and all the stagey stuff happens on a stage with people watching. So it makes total sense. So it's a really interesting way to approach it all. The more interesting thing is all the music they put into this. So who do you closely associate with the type of music of this movie? Like the type of music it has? Like, is there anybody in your life that immediately sprang to mind? Because of I'll Fly Away being the greatest example, I immediately thought of our grandmother, because there's a lot of that old timey, just kind of like, it's not necessarily about nostalgia, and it's funny because there's nobody really that doesn't sing in this movie. Like, there's nobody who's accepted from it. Like everybody, but it's not necessarily somebody you're like, man, they have an incredible voice. They're all just kind of like, they're singing a cool song. Like, it's a nice nifty tune.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, you know, us coming from the South, and we were raised Southern Baptist.
Yep. A lot of hymns. A lot
so
of stuff
those
like that.
hymns, that old stuff, I mean, it connects, and, you know, I'm not really religious anymore, but it still connects with me.
They got that nostalgia to it. And I mean,
I still enjoy it.
And those voices you hear, like whenever you're watching the sirens, the sirens, it might be my favorite. It might be one of my favorite. We'll get into that in a second, but like the sirens are like, that's Emmylou Harris. And that just the type of the Alison Krauses and those type of voices are like
Krauss.
Alison. This really brought Alison Krauss into the main crowd.
Alison Krauss and a what do you call that instrument?
It
starts with an M.
Yes. It's
Mac.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm disappointed that I don't know whatever. We're gonna have to cut this and then edit it around it because we sound like such idiots.
No kidding.
No, I know.
You put her and that instrument together,
I mean, gold.
It's great.
I agree. It's just so
mandolin.
A mandolin. There you go. Yes. It's just it's so warm. It's so inviting and just relaxing, and it's such a contrast to the actual reality of what the Depression is, and that's probably why it was such a success musical wise. Like why it feels right, because all the music's meant to be like feel nice and feel relaxed. And in your life, you can't do any of that. Like there's no comfort in life. So take comfort in this music. And yeah.
Yeah. Um, no, that's a good point. Because I was thinking earlier, um, I love the setting of this movie
Very much so.
being in Deep South Great Depression.
Mhm.
Okay, you've automatically got conflict that every character has to deal with.
Yep.
You're automatically you're in a conflicted setting. And some of I think it's a humorous melancholy.
That's a great way to put it. A humorous melancholy. Absolutely. There's a sadness, but at the same time, it's in a good mood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, we're gonna make it. We'll get there.
It's Babyface Nelson almost purely indicative of it. But it's the severity of it. He's either at the top of the world or at the bottom of the heap, and there's no in between. Like
right.
He's either I'm 10 feet tall or I am nothing in life. It's like it's just the severity.
Because someone called him Babyface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
no, yeah, I really, really like this setting because I think when there's I think this is why war movies are so good, is because I think when you have such a broad, obvious external conflict that everyone's exposed to, it directs everything towards more introspective, like personal conflict.
Yeah, like
man versus himself.
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to deal with the depression?
Yeah.
Or, storming the beach, whatever the case may be. So I like whenever, the setting is the biggest antagonist.
Absolutely.
Basically.
Absolutely. It's the Great Depression. I mean, right whenever they go over to see the hog wallop, they're at the hog wallop farm, and it's like, he turned us in for the bounty, and he's like, got this depression on, got to do for me and mine. And it's like, and at the time I'm just like, it was the Great Depression. It's like, can't exactly, but it's like, he's got to take care of a kid. Like, he slaughtered a horse and put it in stew. Like, of course, it's like, it all makes sense.
The only problem I'd have with the officials showing up at my barn
is burning it down.
Yeah, I'd be like, well, you can't burn it down. So I need that.
Just go in and shoot them. It's fine. You don't need to burn the.
Yeah, I was like, you can kill them, but
man, their first impulse is to burn down a barn. They did it later, and they didn't know they were in there, and it's like, let's just burn this thing down. Okay, so
RUNTOFF.
RUNNOFT. That's right. So
RUNNOFT. Yeah.
So I didn't know if you had do you have a favorite non-Man of Constant Sorrow song from this movie that pops out specifically?
Yeah, I do. I would say, oh crap.
Okay, so I'll run down the listing of the songs real quick. So there's Big Rock Candy Mountain that goes over the credits. You Are My Sunshine, obviously. Down by the River to Pray, which is the baptism scene. Man of Constant Sorrow. Keep on the Sunny Side. I'll Fly Away. Didn't Leave Nobody But the Baby, which is the Siren song. Let's see here.
Hard Time Killing Floor Blues is my favorite.
Hard Time Killing Floor Blues. Which one is that one? Oh, that's the
they're around the campfire.
That's the one Tommy's singing.
Yes, Tommy is singing it, and
that's a good one.
It's one of my favorite scenes. George Clooney's just kind of looking into the campfire, and it's a very
that's
mournful,
the one where they're talking about him being a
sorrowful
D, and yes, you ain't no kind of man without land. Yeah. The sirens of Didn't Leave Nobody But the Baby is a close second, but my favorite is Lonesome Valley. which is sang by the Gravediggers at the climax of the movie, as they're singing that song and the flood comes in and it's all underwater and they're got to go. Oh, it's so good. I love it. Yeah, that's my number one.
You have to go.
Yes, you have to try to get that love note. Yeah, that's the greatest. I love it. So
yeah,
the music in this
that is good.
The music in this is so much
incredible.
of it. So much of it. There's a reason I have a feeling the soundtrack might have made more money than the movie. It's not it's a great movie. That's the great thing. I was like, oh, the movie didn't make enough money as it should have. So you're talking about the setting. I'm going to geek out for a little bit. Roger Deakins is
after it.
Yes, sir. Roger Deakins is the cinematographer of this movie. Roger Deakins is my favorite cinematographer ever. Because everything he does unexpectedly. So I'm going to go on a limb and say there's a little bit of green somewhere in the state of Mississippi. This movie has no green in it. It's all yellow. It's all yellow. And it's all everything. It's not dead. It's just yellow.
The lens they shoot through it looks hot and uncomfortable.
Much dusty. Very a lot of that. Everything Roger Deakins does in this movie, just it's hot, it's uncomfortable, it's yellow, and it is gorgeous. It is so good looking at some, like that opening scene when they're running up and down through the grass with the chain gang in the background, them going through swamps. Sometimes I see those swamps, I'm just like, man, I see mosquitoes all over the place. That's the one that would kill me. And and it's just all of it's beautiful. And Roger Deakins is my guy, and I will always be on the side of Roger Deakins. Leading today to today's poll for a dumbass. Every week I go through a filmography of a filmmaker and put Jake's cinematic knowledge to the test. Today, I am testing you on cinematographer Roger Deakins' Oscar nominations. He has been nominated for 15 Oscars in his career for lensing 15 different movies. It took him his 14th try to win his Oscar. He won his 15th as well. We're going to go through all 15, and Jake is going to tell me whether or not he has seen them. I bet my prediction, you will have 9. I think you'll do a little better than you expect. His first Oscar nomination after a long time collaborations. His first Oscar nomination, 1994. Jake, have you seen The Shawshank Redemption?
Never heard of it. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. Yeah.
And whenever I think of Roger Deakins in that movie, I think of the scene whenever Andy takes over the radio, and it has the whole yard looking up at the speaker, and the camera pans over,
beautiful,
and it stops right here as that speaker is down and it pointing down. It's just that's what I think of when I think of Deakins in that movie. He does a lot of great stuff in that movie, but yeah. So that was his first Oscar nomination. Did not win, but he nominated 2 more years later, Fargo, which obviously he gets another nomination. Man, he started a long series with the Coen Brothers. We talked about it a little bit in The Departed. I know you haven't seen it. The Dalai Lama movie Kundun in 1997. There's a reason you haven't seen it. They don't really, the country of China doesn't really want you to see it, so you can't really go get it anywhere. It's very difficult to find.
I
haven't
that's
seen
kind of been a thing here lately.
But
I was actually listening to a podcast yesterday where they were saying that some releases in China, the ending, it just stops, and they were like, and all the bad guys were arrested by the government.
Yeah, exactly.
And so justice was done.
So there's a version of before the rating system came out, there's a thing called the Hays Code started in the 30s and ran all the way through the 60s. It was essentially a way for Hollywood to police itself, but essentially was a huge censorship, like no premarital sex, no adultery. Bad guys could never get away with it. It was a bunch of stupid rules that really stifled filmmaking. And it's essentially the same thing in other countries. Like Luckily,
Yeah.
we've gotten over that, but
Like, yeah, the bad guy. Yeah,
can't get away.
bad guys can't win.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
you said, arrested by the government. That's kind of how it was. But so Kundun was his third nomination. His fourth nomination, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? His fifth nomination, another Coen Brothers. We talked about it a little bit. The Man Who Wasn't There, probably one of their underseen films. Billy Bob Thornton, black and white, beautifully shot. Needless to say, Roger Deakins doesn't do anything bad. I didn't talk about him. I didn't geek out about him the last time, so I'm geeking about him today. He was nominated in 2007 twice for No Country for Old Men. Exceptional cinematography across especially the desolation, as we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
The other movie from 2007,
Yeah,
his
gorgeous.
his magnum opus of cinematography, the best he has ever done and will never do better again, The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. I don't know if you've ever
Yeah.
seen that. You have?
No, I've heard of it. I've
It's
heard nothing but good.
it's
I
different
need to
than
put
what you
that
expect.
on my to-do list.
It's not the movie that everybody kind of goes in thinking it's like Jesse James movie. It's okay, what would a human Jesse James actually be like? And what are the people around him chasing and all? It's a really great movie. Maybe Brad Pitt's best performance. Great
I need
case.
to check that one out.
It's a great one, and it is the most gorgeous movie I've ever seen. So he had that back-to-back in 2007. 2008, The Reader, Kate Winslet movie. Little underseen. She won an Oscar for it, but obviously him doing good again. Keeping with the Coens. He cannot go away. I don't blame him. 2010, he did True Grit as well.
Yeah. Well,
So
if it ain't broke, why fix it?
Exactly.
If the Coen brothers are like, this guy does badass shit for us.
Exactly. Why
keep
would you
him
stop?
going?
Exactly. He kind of took a turn in 2012. The most beautifully shot Bond movie ever, Skyfall.
I'm not a Bond guy.
Not a Bond guy? Okay, I get it. No, I'm not surprised. I mean, there are some shots in that are really impressive. Back to cop movies. I'm not sure if you've seen this one. Prisoners. Hugh Jackman.
Oh, wait.
Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. Hugh Jackman has his daughter is abducted, and Jake Gyllenhaal is a policeman.
Very good.
Very good. Good. So
excellent. Yeah. I really, really like that movie.
Really dark,
actually.
really morose.
Yes.
But again, beautifully shot.
Yep.
2014 Angelina Jolie film Unbroken. It's about.
I mean,
she directed it. She was not in it.
Yeah, I know.
I thought, who is that about? That's about Louis Zamperini.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as the cinematography goes,
I actually haven't seen it. I haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't?
No, you have though.
Yes, but it seems like they could have done a lot more with this story. I guess I don't.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, there's a lot.
Yeah, nothing wrong with the cinematography aspect of it, but the writing and directing aspect, I would say, was lacking.
I get it. Not lacking in writing or directing or cinematography. 2015 Sicario.
Woo. That's a banger.
That is a banger, and it is very well shot.
Oh yeah,
a movie we eventually need to do. Sicario is great. There's a lot we can get into with Sicario. Okay, so
by the way, I will
go ahead.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
Speaking of Sicario, this reminds me. Me and a coworker were down at the border 2-3 weeks ago. We had to rent an auger. The closest place we could rent it was in Piedras Negras, Mexico.
Oh, really?
And so he was like, well, we got to go into Mexico to get this.
Yeah.
And we were in my truck. And I was like, this is my truck and I'm the one driving it. We're not going there for an auger.
Yeah, just for an
I was
auger.
like, we're not doing it. Okay. The next morning, read a news article. Mayor of Piedras Negras murdered in the middle of in broad daylight in downtown.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, I
Well,
told you.
I mean, you want to talk about it? That's a movie that paints a negative portrait of the cartel. Like,
Yeah.
So I mean,
Oh, it's a lively place.
I'll bet. I have no doubt.
It's a lively area.
So in 2015, Sicario was his 13th nomination. He had come up empty on 13 previous tries. He finally won in 2017 with Blade Runner 2049. Have you seen Blade Runner 2049 or the original? You haven't seen either. Yeah, so Blade Runner 2049, excuse me, is a great movie. A lot of interesting stuff. Plays a lot of good homage to the original. Not surprised you haven't seen it, but he did win his first Oscar. Then he won his final Oscar for his last nomination. He's probably going to get nominated again for a new movie this year, but we'll talk about that another time. His last nomination, where he won 2019's 1917.
He did the cinematography on that.
Yes, he did.
He deserves, dude. That
the entire aspect of the film is really impressive.
I don't even know how that was done.
Yeah,
I watched it. I mean,
it's an experience. There's a lot to it, and
we might have to do 1917 at some point.
You're not wrong. I mean, just that scene of him running across the field is just so. The entire film is that level of anxiety and all that kind of like. We'll get to 1917 eventually. It's a really great, and it's a great movie to rewatch.
I don't want to basically redo the go off on talking about Jaws when we're trying to cover the lobster.
No, not at all.
Because 1917, I can go.
You can go on for a while. So So I nailed it exactly. You have seen 9 of Roger Deakins' 15 Oscar nominations. Shawshank, Fargo, Oh Brother, No Country, True Grit, Prisoners Unbroken, Sicario, and 1917. I haven't seen Prisoners, and I haven't seen Kundun, but besides that, I've seen everything else. I haven't seen
Prisoners,
and I haven't seen Unbroken. I'll get to Prisoners eventually. I really like that director. Okay, so before we keep going, we had talked about, this is obviously based on the Odyssey. There's a lot of cool things. Like, I had never read the books, but my experience with it is just essentially through the countless times it was made in fiction. Like, I don't know, like I know certain little things about the Odyssey, like obviously the Cyclops and that kind of stuff. You're much more familiar with how it associates, right?
Well, I get that's probably giving me too much credit.
But there's a lot to. So you kind of made a list of the stuff that kind of the parallels, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, something with some of these movies that I think like, okay, that's a great movie, is that it has staying power.
Yeah.
Okay. So it means in 5 years, you're not going to forget about it.
Yeah.
You're going to rewatch it.
Yep.
Your kids are going to watch it.
Yes.
I mean, and I will say this, this movie has staying power. I would say.
Absolutely. So the majority, I watch a lot of movies, and you would be shocked at the amount of movies I watch that I forgot. It's like, oh yeah, I did watch all of that, devoted time, wrote about it, and I still can't remember anything about it. Like, it's that forgettable. So I understand completely what you mean. And you're right. This has staying power across the board.
Yeah. Well, and I'll give credit to Homer because he wrote this in the 7th century BC.
So 2,700 years later. I mean, that's
I would call that staying power.
It's a pretty good. I mean, it's just the general idea of the a guy goes on a journey that's fraught, and to get to
it's a ballad.
It's technically, that's the funny thing about it.
That's
technically a song. It's a song.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. We both just connected it right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we just figured it out.
Yeah, we didn't come into that. Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah. And then there's a few other interesting things that I noticed on this as compared to the Odyssey was so Everett's wife, who this whole journey is essentially based on.
Yes.
I mean, his whole motivation. Her name is Penny Warvey.
Yeah.
Okay, so Penny, played by Holly Hunter. But the Odysseus's
Wife.
is actually named Penelope.
Close. I get it. Yeah.
Penny.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's the Cyclops reference.
Yes.
The blind man.
Yes.
That
the seer.
was initially.
Yes.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. He is a farrier. I mean, there's a blind farrier that basically predicts this journey
Interesting.
across a river. Yeah, for this dude's journey.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff like that. Like I saw that I'm disappointed I haven't said anything about Pappy O'Daniel yet. I'm gonna talk a little about him in a minute. He's so great in everything that happens in this movie. But I mean, he's actually based on a Texas governor, by the way.
I don't doubt it.
He's based on Texas Governor W. Lee Pappy O'Daniel. But I mean, and even his name, I believe, is Menelaus. Menelaus Pappy O'Daniel, an Odyssey character, but he's actually not playing that character in this movie. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, and while obviously this is based on the Odyssey, there are stark differences between the stories because actually in the Odyssey, he tells his men to tie him to the mast of their boat.
Yeah, that's right.
He knows the sirens will be, their call is so powerful that it'll lure him away. So he gets them. But obviously in this story,
Clooney's not exactly as
he just
he's like
gets drunk with them and wakes up the next morning and goes, I guess my friend's a frog.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that. I mean, and that's where I think all the brilliance of the adaptation is from. It's like, well, obviously it's like he's human and he's played by George Clooney, and we've kind of established he's kind of a shit. So why don't we just have him get drunk and he's not the one that's taken in for the reward? And it's like, okay, well, that pushes the story forward. Like, it's one of those, it's like, what trait do we have to do to make the story go forward? Because if we make it too much like the thing, is that going to stop the story dead?
Right.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. There was, so a great scene that I wanted to bring up was the baptism scene.
Yes.
They play a song
Down by the River.
Down by the river.
Yes.
Down by the river to pray.
Yeah.
And they go down there, and this is when Delmar and Pete get saved. Well, I just wanted to bring up a funny point that I thought of when I last watched this. Me and you actually got baptized together.
Correct.
I
already know what you're going to say.
Yeah. And so Ben went in right before me. And he's in front of the whole congregation. He gets his dip.
I'm 7 years old, by the way.
Yeah. So I was, what, 9?
You're 9. Yeah.
I go into this water with the preacher and I get my dip and I'm saved. And I get out and they have a little locker room where you
Yep.
can change back in your church clothes.
Yep.
And Ben told me, hey, when I was in there, I peed in it. So I just want everyone to know me and Ben were baptized, but I got baptized in Ben's piss. Basically, that's
the Father, the Son, and a bad pH balance. I mean,
there's a lot of ammonia in the water.
I'm so sorry. Well,
You wonder why I don't go to church anymore.
I'm sorry, I was a child.
Well,
So
explain it to our mom.
So a couple quick notes real quick. We hadn't really talked about Pappy O'Daniel, Charles Durning in this film. He's hilarious. Pretty much everything he says. Says some bitch a lot, which I always really like. Anytime you,
Some bitch.
I love it. So Pappy O'Daniel always reminds me of being in college. One of these degrees back here says mass communication, and whenever I was in college, we would be in some kind of class, and just to be a smartass or something, I would quote the Pappy O'Daniel line. It's like, we ain't one at a time in here. We're mass communicating. And so I would just yell that in the halls sometimes just to occasionally liven things up. So that's what I always thought of. And everything he does is hilarious. And he looks like he weighs 900 pounds. And, but at the same time, and then his pants are up here. His son looks bigger somehow. Every line he says is hilarious. What he calls him a suck of nuts. It's like, thank God your mama died in childbirth. She died of shame. Just everything he said is great. All right, Jake, I think it is time.
All right. Ben, you're in the hot box.
Each episode, instead of me steering the conversation, Jake peppers me with a series of questions that I must answer truthfully. Sometimes it's just trivia. Sometimes it involves me peeing in a baptismal. So we'll find out. What do you got for me, buddy?
All right. So this is going to be a lightning round.
Okay.
So for our listeners, Ben has a very encyclopedic mind.
Sure.
He keeps trivia locked in his head shockingly well. He used to be, I don't know if he still is, we're about to find out. He used to know off the top of his head every state capital in the United States.
Yeah, okay.
Ben is my brother. So
yes,
we're going to play a game called Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Okay, I like this.
I'm going to name the state, and
I got to name the capital.
Got to find you in the capital.
Okay.
And this is going to go quick.
Okay, I'm ready. Yeah, because you're going to try to keep me on my toes. Okay. I think I'm ready. I've had a lot of practice. You were the geography guy, but I got the states down. Okay, I am ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
All right. Okay. Ben.
Yes.
You're in the state capital.
Okay.
Of every state.
Okay.
Alabama.
Montgomery.
Correct. Alaska.
Juneau.
Correct. Arizona.
Phoenix.
Correct. Arkansas.
Little Rock.
Correct. California.
Sacramento.
Correct. Colorado.
Denver.
Correct. Connecticut.
Oh no. I'll pass. Come back to that one.
Delaware.
Dover.
Florida.
Tallahassee.
Correct. Georgia.
Atlanta.
Correct. Hawaii.
Honolulu.
Correct. Idaho.
Boise.
Correct. Illinois.
Springfield.
Correct. Indiana.
Indianapolis.
Correct. Iowa.
Des Moines.
Correct. Kansas.
Crap.
Mm-hmm.
I almost said about 9 other capitals.
Bonk.
Topeka.
Ah, you got it.
Okay.
You pulled it out.
Okay.
Kentucky.
Lexington.
Nope.
Oh no, it's Frankfurt.
Correct. Louisiana.
Baton Rouge.
Correct. The old red stick.
That's right.
Maine.
Augusta.
Correct. Maryland.
Oh no, this is a dumb one.
Home
Maryland.
of the U.S. Naval Academy.
Oh. Annapolis.
Correct. Massachusetts.
Boston.
Yep. Michigan.
Lansing.
Yep. Minnesota.
St. Paul.
Correct. Mississippi.
Oh, no.
This is where the movie's set.
Literally where the movie's set. It's I can't get Alabama out of my head. It's it's 2 words. Nope. I don't have it.
Missouri.
Carson City.
Nope.
Carson City. It's what's the hell's Carson City?
That's a state capital.
I know. Now I'm mad now.
It just ain't the one from Missouri.
Okay.
Okay. Bonk.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yep.
Montana.
Helena.
Nebraska.
Carson City. No, it's man.
Named after a U.S. president.
Lincoln. Sorry.
Yep. Nevada.
Carson City.
There you go.
There it is. Yeah, there it was.
New Hampshire.
Concord.
Correct. New Jersey.
Trenton.
Correct. New Mexico.
Santa Fe.
Correct. New York.
Albany.
Correct. North Carolina.
Raleigh.
Correct. North Dakota. Oh, brother, where art thou?
Hold on. North Dakota. Bismarck.
Correct.
Ooh.
Ohio.
Columbus.
Correct. Oklahoma.
Oklahoma City.
Tough one.
Yeah.
Oregon.
Salem.
Correct. Pennsylvania.
Harrisburg.
Correct. Rhode Island.
Providence.
Correct. South Carolina.
Columbia.
Correct. South Dakota.
Pierre.
Correct. Tennessee.
Nashville.
Correct. All right. Let's go back. Which ones did you not get?
Oh, wait, we're not done yet.
That's all the states I got.
Tennessee. Well, Wyoming.
I guess I don't have that.
Cheyenne. Cheyenne.
All right.
Washington is Olympia.
Washington.
Olympia is Washington, and
I guess I just quit looking.
just after Tennessee, you're done. Okay.
Get to the T's and
Missouri.
call it.
Jefferson City.
I'm sorry, Missouri.
Jefferson City.
Correct.
Okay. So.
What was the other?
Oh no. It was Mississippi.
Oh yeah.
Mississippi. It's oh no. Oh, I'm so disappointed in myself. I want to look it up so badly. I have the World Wide Web at my fingers.
Who's the king of pop?
Michael Jackson, Mississippi.
Well,
We're going to Jackson
because I even left out states. Oh well, that's good enough.
Yeah.
You're
and
out of the hot box.
by the way, Austin, Texas.
Fuck, I forgot my own state.
West Virginia. What's West Virginia?
I didn't do a good job.
This is fine.
I didn't do my research. I didn't count.
That was worth it.
Goddamn Wikipedia.
Should you blame it on who edited it? Who edited out the W's? All right, Jake. So we're about done. So I'll share my film rating real quick. So from the year 2000, this is my second favorite movie. I have this 4.5 out of 5. It's almost perfect in my mind. The only movie I have better than that is Requiem for a Dream. It's a movie I've watched twice, and I don't think I ever want to watch again. It's such a rough movie, but it's pretty much technically perfect. I love this. I can rewatch this movie more, but it's my number 2 movie of 2000.
Oh yeah.
So 4.5 out of 5. What about you?
Usually I'm a love it or leave it guy.
Yeah.
That's it. I either hate it or I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I usually don't really rate them.
Yeah. Right
Rank
numbers or anything. Yeah.
Top 5.
Really?
Easy.
Really? I didn't realize it was that high. Yeah.
I love it. I love it so much.
I love it too. And you know what? Like, neither of our wives like this movie, and it doesn't matter. Like, I don't care if they hate it. It's like, I agree. I love it so
They're
much.
Dumb.
Yeah.
Ben.
He said it, honey. I know you watch every Monday morning. I didn't say it. That just about does it for us. Before we go, just a little update on programming. We have finally gotten our crap together after 10 episodes and have a more streamlined list of actually our plans of what we're doing. So next week we are doing our first foreign film from Denmark. We are doing Another Round, the Oscar winner for best foreign language film from 2020. It is available on Hulu if you want to get a head start on it. So please go check that out. We will watch that and talk about that a bunch next week. And then
I've never seen it, so it'll be a new one for me.
And then we have a lot of fun things coming for you in the month of October. We have 5 weeks in the month, 5 episodes in the month of October. We're all going to do scary horror stuff. So it's going to be a lot of fun coming up. So,
and I even think we have pretty much our Christmas lineup.
Pretty much. I mean,
we have
a lot of cool stuff going through.
Be fun.
A lot of stuff. Maybe even throw in something random and fun as we go along as well. That just about does it for this episode of the Film Critic and the Common Man. Thank you so very much for joining us. You can follow me on Twitter at nebisben, at Letterboxd at neb810, on Instagram at Ben Miller Movies. Check out my website, icecreamforfreaks.com. You can follow my other writing on the Film Experience and Cinema Scholars. Had a really nice piece on the Film Experience about this podcast, actually. Please go check that out. Really talking about what I've learned for this, the first 9, now 10 episodes. Also writing on Cinema Scholars as well.
We're in double digits, dude.
Double digits, baby. We lasted.
Woo! We made it.
10 episodes and 10 straight weeks.
Hey,
I'm proud of myself.
We got a copyright strike and we made 10 episodes. Fuck. Now I know how Joe Rogan feels.
You can also find me on other pods on the David Thulis of Podcasting. Jake, where can the people find you?
There is actually a place in Tishomingo. A man will pay you $10 speaking to his can. You should be able to get a hold of me through there.
I'm not telling your story.
It actually goes right into here. So go to Tishomingo, pay a blind dude $10. You got me.
Friend, I ain't telling stories, but somebody will pay you $10. Oh, it's great. Yeah. Make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at Critic Common Pod. And please like, subscribe, rate, and review. Available wherever you get your podcast, Good Pods, Podvine, Apple Podcast, all that stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. We will catch you next week when we talk about Another Round. Thank you all very much. We'll see y'all later.
Thank you, everyone.
What's the trick? What's the trick? In making my love stick. What's the trick?